Different place, same result for the Kings, who have won 6 straight. We've got the details, analysis, and more on this edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. I'm Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings. I've worked in sports media for the past 30 years, co-host of the Puck Podcast, a weekly NHL review show that's been putting out content for the last 18 years, and a passionate LA Kings fan for over 30 years. You can enjoy the NFL season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Well, the LA Kings started a 7-game East Coast road trip coming off that stretch of games with Psalm won 6 in a row at home and 5 straight overall. It was game number 28 of the NHL season in New York against the Islanders on Tuesday night. Islanders were a playoff team from a year ago, but struggling to get on track so far this season. As for the Kings and their lineup, they would continue to go with that 11-7 setup for the third straight game. Anze Kopitar centering the top line with Adrian Kempe and Trevor Moore. The second line centered by Quinton Byfield alongside Tanner Jeannot and Warren Foegele. Philip Deneau centering the third line with Kevin Fiala and Alex Laferriere. The fourth line would have two players, Samuel Helenius at center and Alex Turcotte on the wing, and the other winger would be rotating from the other group of wingers in the game. As for the defensive pairs, the same, with 7 defensemen, Mikey Anderson and Vladislav Gavrikov, Joel Edmondson and Brandt Clark, Jacob Moverara and Jordan Spence, and Kyle Burrows was the extra defenseman. Your goaltender was, once again, Darcy Kuemper, back from injury after missing 8 games, but he was making his second straight start, and David Rittich would serve as the backup. The big question going into this game for me was, would the Kings start off this big 7-game road trip with a win and continue to play the style of play that we saw them over this 6-game winning streak? Well, as for the game summary against the Islanders, very good start for the LA Kings in this one. Clearly the better team over the first 20 minutes of action. The Islanders didn't have a shot on goal for the first 8 minutes or so of the game. LA did get the first goal, Anze Kopitar to Adrian Kempe with about 6 minutes left in the period, and it was 1-0 Kings. Kings outshooting the Islanders 12-3 in the opening period. Second period, Kevin Fiala would make it 2-0 LA with a wicked wrist shot from distance. However, the Islanders would get on the board, cutting the lead to 2-1 heading into the third. Definitely a better period for the Islanders, but not a bad period for LA. Kings still outshot the Islanders in that second period, 13-10. In the third, the Kings were outshot 7-5, and they didn't really sit on the lead, but certainly the Kings were thinking defense first in this one. Mikey Anderson would eventually score late into an empty net for the only goal of the period, and the Kings skate off with a 3-1 victory. Kings improving to 12-0-1 on the season, in which they had the lead going into the third period. As for the game stats in this one, you had the Kings with a 3-1 win. LA outshot the New York Islanders 30-20. As far as special teams go, no power play goals for either team in this one. The Islanders had 3 opportunities. They were 0 for 3. The Kings had 1 chance with the man advantage and was 0 for 1. Face-offs in this one. This is big. The New York Islanders were the number 1 face-off team in the league coming into this game, and the Kings got the edge in the face-off circle, winning 20 face-offs while the Islanders won 18. As far as the hits go, favored New York 16-14. Block shots favored the Kings 12-9. Our quote of the game comes from Kings captain Anze Kopitar, asking to kind of sum up the victory over the Islanders. He said, quote, "The start, I think, was one of the better starts we've had, really one of the better periods we've had all year. So obviously important. They're a stingy team that can sting you pretty quick, so we wanted to make sure we kept it going. The second period maybe got a little bit loose, but then when it was time to tighten it up again, I thought we did a pretty good job for the most part. The mistakes that were made, Darcy was big for us back there." End quote, talking, of course, about Kings goalie Darcy Kuemper. So what was good for LA from a team standpoint? Well, a great start in this one. You always want that. You can't have 3 solid periods without the first one. That said, I don't feel like the Kings played 3 great periods in this one, more like 1 great period, 1 solid period, and 1 good enough period. And with all due respect to the New York Islanders, that kind of effort is okay against the Islanders. Probably not good enough to beat a team like, say, the New Jersey Devils, who the Kings will be playing in their next game. But again, good enough to get the win on Long Island. Obviously, no wins are bad wins, and give the Kings credit. They did what was necessary to get the 2 points, especially to start a road trip. That's always good, regardless of how you get it. You want to start off the road trip on the right foot. The Kings did that. Great on the penalty kill, killing all 3 power plays that the Islanders had. The Kings are statistically middle of the pack in the NHL on the PK, but it seems to me they're better than that. Seems like they've done a really, really good job. Specifically, I don't know, the last 15, 16 games of the penalty kill, I think has been really good. It seems like it's been solid. And they had to come up big in the third period in this one. Vladislav Gavrikov, unfortunately, taking a bad penalty, flipping it out of the playing surface for a delay of game penalty. An opportunity for the Islanders to tie it up, and the Kings got the job done on the PK. Kings had a great shot mentality, got players to the net, good forecheck, all the things that they've been doing over this stretch of wins to keep that win streak going. They did not allow the Islanders any breakaways or odd man rushes to speak of. Very few chances for the Islanders in the high danger areas. New York got a few pucks in on Darcy Kemper in close, but usually they were too close to get off a good shot though. But not many good shots on net overall for the Islanders. So what was not so good for the Kings from a team standpoint? Well, the Kings didn't finish on some very good scoring opportunities. Some pucks were shot wide. There were some block shots, but Quentin Byfield had a couple of really good chances. Philip Deneau had a couple of really good chances. Trevor Moore, all great chances on break-ins or 2-on-1s and opportunities that unfortunately the Kings did not finish on. I will give Islanders goaltender credit. Ilya Sorokin, I thought, made a few very good saves, especially early on in that first period. But again, if you're looking for something that wasn't great from the Kings, some really good scoring opportunities that they just could not capitalize on. So what is my big takeaway from this win over the Islanders? Well, Jim Hiller recently called the Kings a solid team, said it several times after the win over Minnesota. And this was a solid win. Certainly not going to look to this to be one of the better games of the season necessarily. But when you see the final score, 3-1, you think, okay, they got the job done. But again, the Kings did have some good scoring chances, especially early. They'll need to clean that up a bit more. It's great to get those chances, but you got to capitalize on some of them. I will say that, again, trying to look big picture at what the Kings are doing right now, it does feel like they are playing that playoff style of hockey, grinding out some low scoring games. And, the Kings are still playing that kind of blue collar effort. And again, when you look at the plan going into the season, I know some Kings fans will maybe recoil in horror when I say this, but Rob Blake did have this plan of making this team tougher, making them more blue collar, scoring those dirty goals. Remember, he talked about the team getting uncomfortable. Well, they're kind of doing that right now. Kings, playing those low-scoring games. And in this game against the Islanders, they had a 2-1 lead for about the final 26, 27 minutes of the game. And the Kings, I think, are getting very comfortable with playing in those types of games and closing out those types of games. And maybe playing this 11-7 setup for as long as they play it can certainly help with that. You've got an extra defenseman, although we'll talk more about one of the Kings defensemen that played a lot tonight. But you've got that extra defenseman. He's in the rotation throughout the game. Maybe that gives the defense just that little extra bit of energy late in a game to make that extra play to get your stick in the shooting lane and deflect the puck away or whatever it might be. But again, it's a good win for the Kings. You want to start off the road trip on the right way. They did that. Give them credit for that for sure. But I think, again, bigger picture, you're seeing a playoff style of hockey for the LA Kings. Again, they're not going to play a team probably like the Islanders in the playoffs, but I still think positives, obviously, going forward for the Kings as this winning streak has now reached 6 in a row. Up next, we'll look at some of the individual players that did well and maybe not so well against the Islanders. That's next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Hey, PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. It is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Just go to PrizePicks, download the app, and you could be a winner, and you could win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. PrizePicks is the best way to get in on the sports action in most states, including California. Download that PrizePicks app today and use the code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's the code LOCKEDONNHL on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even have to win to receive the the $50 bonus. It is guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. All right, let's get into some of the individuals in the game against the New York Islanders. And as usual, we will start with the goaltender, Darcy Kuemper. Wasn't too busy early in the game, but was called upon later in the game, the second half of the game, third period, to make a couple of key saves when the Islanders were looking to make a push to tie it up late. The Islanders did hit a couple of posts, but I'm sure Darcy would say, I gave him the post. That's why they hit the post. The one goal he allowed, I wouldn't go so far to say it was a soft goal because it was from a high danger area in the high slot. But I think Kuemper would say he should have had that one. And I think his reaction, if you saw when that goal went in, he threw his head back to say, oh, I should have had that one. But overall, only one goal allowed certainly is very good. On the season, Darcy Kuemper now 6-2-3, 2.50 goals against average at a .910 save percentage. The Kings have now allowed 2 or fewer goals 17 times this season. The Kings have allowed a total of 8 goals over this 6-game winning streak. Obviously, that's not only a testament to the goaltending, but the overall team defense as well. Anze Kopitar continues to get it done. Got the Kings going with a gorgeous pass from behind the net to Adrian Kempe to make it 1-0. Islanders making a big mistake of letting the Kings captain have all the time he wanted behind the net, and he set up his line mate perfectly. We've talked about it before, but we've seen Jim Hiller do a lot of different things with the lines. One thing he's not going to do is take Kopitar and Kempe away from playing with each other. They just have great chemistry. They know exactly what the other's going to do, and you certainly saw it again, and we've seen it a lot lately, but again on this play in this game to get the first goal against the Islanders. There was a moment in the first period where Kopitar skates in on the forecheck, just kind of a dump in, and I thought the Islanders probably thought the Kings were maybe going for a change, but Kopitar goes into the zone, pins the defenseman up against the boards, steals the puck, and sets up Alex Turcotte for a shot on goal. And I just thought, when you see your captain work that hard and make that kind of play, I think it really sets a tone and sends a message to the rest of your roster. You see a guy in his 19th season, in his late 30s doing something like that. You're like, man, if he's doing that, I got to be doing that too. So just another great example of Anze Kopitar doing it by his actions. He leads the team in points, by the way, with 32 in 28 games now with that assist he had against the Islanders. Last 7 games, he's got a point in all 7 games. And by the way, I mentioned again, the Islanders came in as the #1 faceoff team in the NHL. Anze Kopitar won 10 of the 15 faceoffs in the game against New York. Kevin Fiala, always good to see good Kevin show up. He showed up in this one, was active, skated hard, had the puck on his stick a lot, and did a lot of good things with it. Didn't force passes, didn't have any bad turnovers, didn't take any penalties. And the goal he scored, which turned out to be the game-winning goal, is why I have such a high standard for Kevin Fiala. An absolute seed from distance, a wrist shot perfectly placed into the top part of the net. That is elite skill. And again, your game-winning goal comes on that shot. His 10th goal of the season, that's good enough for 3rd on the team. He has 18 points now on the year. That's tied for 4th on the team. Not bad numbers from a guy that I would say has been just okay so far this season. But this is more of what we need from Kevin Fiala going forward. He's a very important player for the Kings. He can be a very impactful player for the Kings. He is heating up a bit of late. 3 goals and 5 points in his last 6 games. In his previous 8 games, he had 1 point and assist before that. Also, I did want to point out the Kings only had 1 power play, but Jim Hiller doing things again a little bit outside of the box, which I love. He put Kevin Fiala on the ice for the entire 2 minutes of the Kings power play. He played on both the first and second power play units. Just another example of Jim Hiller doing something a little bit different to have Kevin Fiala be more active, get more touches by playing the entire 2 minutes of the power play and just kind of get him going even more. I thought that was a very innovative move and a good move on the part of Jim Hiller. Adrian Kempe opens up the scoring with his team-leading 14th goal of the season. Jim Hiller, again, might like to move players around. He's not moving him and Kopitar off that top line. He would be a fool to do so. Last 11 games for Adrian Kempe, 9 goals and 14 points for the man they call Juice. Mikey Anderson continues to elevate his game in the absence of Drew Doughty. Played 56 minutes and 56 seconds in this one to lead the team in time on ice. Also got the empty net goal to seal the victory. 4 goals in the season, certainly a modest number, but for Mikey, that's only 1 away from his career high. And there's still a lot of hockey left to be played. So Mikey Anderson, not obviously getting it done with his goal scoring, but it was nice to see him get the empty net goal. Obviously, he's out there in key situations all the time, eating up minutes and getting the job done defensively for the LA Kings. Quentin Byfield, no points for Q, and he was a -1 in this one, but he had a couple of high-quality scoring opportunities, but he didn't finish. And some people may say, hey, we're winning. Q may not be scoring, but he's doing other things. And I get that. And I actually don't even disagree with that. But that's not the question when it comes to Quentin Byfield. The question is, can the Kings win with Byfield as a contributor? The answer clearly is yes. They've been doing that all season long. But the thing with Q is that he has the talent, I believe, to be more than just a contributor. And he needs to finish on some of those chances he's getting. It seems like maybe he's rushing it a little bit. Maybe he's pressing a little bit, but he's getting the chances. He's just not getting the shots off. He's kind of fumbling the puck. Puck's bouncing a little bit, things like that. Again, encouraging that he's getting some chances, and it's encouraging that he continues to do the other things. Again, I don't think that Jim Hiller's upset necessarily with the way he's playing. I don't think his teammates are upset with the way he's playing, but Quentin Byfield can be a huge difference maker. Again, the Kings can win with him just contributing and doing other things, but if he starts to score, if he becomes a dangerous player on the ice, that makes the Kings so much more dangerous. Hopefully, there's still time. I keep saying this. If he can come on late in the year, find that scoring touch, get some confidence, and he's a guy who can be a factor come playoff time, it's going to be huge for the Kings. But so far, it's just not there for him, and we keep waiting for it, and hopefully we see it sometime soon. I did want to mention Kyle Burroughs, a guy we don't mention a lot, and he's the 7th defenseman in this 11-7 setup. But in the first period, Islanders defenseman Alexander Romanov put a hard hit on Kings forward Alex Laferriere. It was a bit high. It was definitely hard, and Laferriere went down hard. And Burroughs stood up for his teammate, and thankfully Laffy was okay. And Romanov wasn't penalized. I don't even know they should have been, to be honest with you. It was just a clean, hard hit. But in the moment, I get why Burroughs did what he did. And even though it was a scoreless game, and even though it ended up giving the Islanders a power play, because Burroughs dropped his glove and Romanov refused to do the same, that was an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty against Burroughs. I still think that was the right thing to do for Kyle Burroughs. Again, big picture, maybe small picture. It wasn't you would like, if you're going to do that, you'd like to make sure the other guy is going to go with you before you drop your gloves. Maybe you go after him and you grab him and you challenge him. And then if he doesn't say he wants to engage with you, then you maybe try and get him later in the game or something like that. But he immediately dropped the gloves, went after him. Romanov's like, no, I'm not dropping my gloves. I didn't do anything wrong. And So they got a penalty. But I think it was the right thing to do. You stick up for your teammate. And in the moment, you're on the ice. You don't, I got the benefit of watching it from my couch. And you see the replay and you're like, yeah, that was hard. A little high, but I think it was clean. And look, I love the violence in hockey. I love good, hard, clean hits in hockey. And I don't think a guy who delivers a good, hard, clean hit should have to fight because of that. But again, in the moment, you're on the ice. You see Alex Laferriere go down hard. It looked like it was high. You can't go back and look at the TV and look on the bench and see what the replay was. Now, in the moment you react to it, and Kyle Burroughs did, and I thought it was the right move. I really do. But again, maybe he can wait and see if the other guy drops the gloves before he does that. I will point out Tanner Jeannot did come back later in the game and put a big hit on Romanov into the boards. That also was a close one that could have been called a penalty. The refs didn't call that one either. So fair is fair, but good for Kyle Burroughs and Tanner Jeannot for sticking up for their teammates. We talked about the Kings being a tougher team. Certainly, there were some moves made to go out and make them tougher, and we saw a little bit of that in the win as well over the Islanders. Just some more stats real quick to close this out. Adrian Kempe, only player for the Kings to have a multi-point game, 2 points, a goal, and an assist. Kevin Fiala and Quentin Byfield were tied for the team lead with shots on goal with 4. Philip Deneau led the Kings with block shots with 3, and Tanner Jeannot led the Kings with 4 hits. We still need to give out our 3 stars of the game and update you on some roster moves by the Kings. We'll do that next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new subscribers can get $5 or can get $5, or you can bet $5. I'll get it right eventually. You can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place your live bet on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live, play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com and join today. You will get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, my favorite part of the show, because it means the Kings have won, and that is giving out our 3 stars of the game in the win over the Islanders. And my number 3 star, I'm going to go with Darcy Kemper. Again, wasn't too busy early in the first half of this game, but the second half was called upon to make some big saves. Only allowed 1 goal and got the job done for sure. He's my number 3 star. Adrian Kempe is my number 2 star with a goal and an assist. And the number 1 star for me is Kevin Fiala with his game-winning goal. And again, I don't know if he was the best player on the ice. He was certainly one of the more active players on the ice. And that game-winning goal was an elite shot from Kevin Fiala. So those are your 3 stars of the game. So 1 down, 7 to go. Actually, 1 down, 6 to go. I'm good at math. Not really. 7-game road trip, 1 game down, 6 to go. Kings win the first one. Much tougher test on Thursday when the Kings go up against the New Jersey Devils. They're one of the top teams in the NHL, one of the higher scoring teams in the NHL, certainly much different from the Islanders. So the Kings will need to have a better all-around game against New Jersey. But we've seen the Kings elevate their game against some of the best in the NHL recently. The Jets, the Stars, the Wild, all wins for the Kings over this stretch of 6 straight victories. So I think the Kings will be ready for it, but it's going to be a tough game there in Newark, New Jersey, coming up on Thursday. I did want to mention the Kings did gain ground in the Pacific Division. LA now a record of 17-8-3 for 87 points. They are now 2 points back of the Vegas Golden Knights for first place in the Pacific. 39 points for Vegas, 18-7-3 on the season. The Golden Knights have won 3 in a row as well. So the Kings, even though they've been playing so great and have this 6-game winning streak, they have not gained much ground on Vegas. The Golden Knights will play Thursday in Winnipeg in their next game. The Kings made some roster moves ahead of their game against the Islanders. They placed defenseman Caleb Jones on waivers. He went unclaimed by the rest of the league, so the Kings then assigned him to Ontario in the AHL. Also joining Jones down in Ontario is Arthur Kaliev. Now, Kaliev was not placed on waivers. but he was placed on a loan to the Ontario Reign on a conditioning assignment. You may have heard this before. The Kings have done this periodically. They did it with Brant Clark once upon a time. Basically, conditioning loan means that you can send a player who's coming back from an injury down to the AHL to allow him to get into playing shape. The CBA rule is it's 14 days. You can send a player down to the AHL on a conditioning assignment without going through waivers for 14 days. So Arthur Kaliev joining the Ontario Reign to get some games in and get ready to return to the NHL. If you don't recall, Arthur Kaliev injured in training camp, suffered a broken collarbone and a hit into the boards, and has not played 1 second in the NHL this season. Where Arthur Kaliev is going to fit in eventually when he is ready to play, I don't know. Clearly, right now, the Kings aren't going to do anything differently riding this winning streak. But of course, Kaliev's not ready to come back right now anyway. But yeah, if the Kings are going to, right now they're using that 11-7 setup. So there is obviously a hole on the fourth line where they could plug in Arthur Kaliev. But we've seen before that Arthur Kaliev just isn't a fourth line player. You can play him there. But he's not really that kind of a player. He's not a player that gets in on the forecheck. He's not a player that hits. He's not a player that creates a lot of turnovers. He's a guy that's got an above average shot if you can set him up for it. So again, I don't know really where he fits in right now with the Kings. And it's unfortunate for Artie. We talked about it going into the season. The slate was going to be wiped clean. He was going to get a fresh start. Jim Hiller said that. He said that. And then he gets hurt. And then guys start to establish themselves. Alex Turcotte has established himself. Alex Laferriere has reestablished himself from last year. You look at Tanner Jeannot and you could say, well, Arthur Kaliev can score better than Tanner Jeannot. Yeah, Tanner Jeannot leads the team in hits. Arthur Kaliev is not going to do that. So, yeah, if you're just looking at scoring, sure. But that's not obviously all a coach looks at when he's filling a roster. So, we'll see where Arthur Kaliev gets called up to the Kings. We'll see where they try to fit him in, but I don't think it's going to be a very easy transition for Arthur Kaliev to get back into the NHL with the LA Kings. And he's kind of back where he was again last season, kind of in limbo right now. But we'll see how it goes. But he's in Ontario, going to get some skating in, and we'll see if he gets an opportunity to get in the lineup with the LA Kings here in the near future. For you everydayers, those of you that listen and watch Locked On LA Kings every day, coming up on tomorrow's show, we're going to be joined by Carl Bolikian, who covers the LA Kings for the Hockey News. He's going to join us to talk about the Kings winning streak. We'll also preview that Kings-Devils game as well. Coming up on Thursday, obviously, we'll recap the Kings-Devils game. And then on Friday, we will have our traditional weekly Kings fan feedback show. If you want to get in on that, send us an email to lockedoneddie@gmail.com, EDDIE. And if you're watching on YouTube, always welcome your comments in the comment section. Those help the show to get recognized as well, so appreciate that. Would love for you to stay connected with us on social media, X, Twitter, Instagram. We are at Locked On LA Kings. I'm Eddie Garcia. Thank you as always for listening and watching this episode of Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you tomorrow. And as always, go Kings, go.